Often called the Age of Fish, the Devonian saw a major radiation of fish groups both in marine and freshwater environments. By the late Devonian, the stage was set for an invasion of the land, with the arrival of the first four-legged vertebrates, the tetrapods. Devonian seas teemed with life, and a wide variety of fish evolved and spread around the globe, including the first true sharks. Jawless fish, such as the osteostracans, were the first to explore estuaries and lagoons and were followed by jawed predators, including placoderms and the sarcopterygians, bony fish with lobed fins. It was the sarcopterygians that gave rise to the first vertebrates to venture onto land. Tetrapods are four-legged animals, and include amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. The earliest known tetrapods appeared in the late Devonian about 365 million years ago, in the form of Acanthostega and Ichthyostega. They are assigned to the class Sarcopterygii and evolved from the lobe-finned fish. Recent research has established that the fish most closely related to the tetrapods is Tiktaalik rosei, whose fossils were found in 375-million-year-old rocks on Ellesmere Island in the Canadian Arctic in 2004. Tiktaalik and another closely related sarcopterygian fish, Panderichthys rhombolepis, which lived about 380 million years ago, have flattened skulls and dorsally placed eyes, similar to Acanthostega. The discovery of the fossils of Acanthostega and Ichthyostega overturned some entrenched misconceptions about the evolution of the first tetrapods. Originally, it was thought that tetrapods had 5 fingers and toes, digits, when hands and feet evolved from fish fins. However, Acanthostega has 8 digits, while Ichthyostega has 7, indicating that the number of digits was variable and only became fixed at 5 later in tetrapod evolution. In addition, the idea that tetrapods first evolved when they lumbered onto the land also proved to be incorrect. The fossil specimens of Acanthostega and Ichthyostega were found in rocks in Greenland that were clearly deposited in a river environment, indicating that these early tetrapods lived in streams or small rivers. The fossils are well preserved and nearly complete rather than being disarticulated, indicating that these animals died and were buried very close to where they lived, rather than being transported any great distance. Also, their paddle-like limbs were more suited to swimming than walking, and Acanthostega had a fish-like tail. Although they both had lungs and could breathe air, they retained internal gills. It seems that tetrapods in the Devonian were gradually adapting to the final transition from water to land. Their conquest of the land would not be completed until the Carboniferous. The Gogo Formation in Western Australia is the remains of an extensive Devonian reef system. Many placoderms have been preserved there in limestone nodules. These nodules can be dissolved with acetic acid, revealing the fossilized fish within. The preservation is so fine that placoderm muscle tissue has recently been discovered, as well as evidence of embryos within the body of the mother. In Meterpicus attenboroughii, the embryo is connected to its mother by an umbilical cord. These embryos provide some of the earliest evidence in the fossil record of internal fertilization and gestation. In external fertilization, sperm from the male mixes with eggs in the water and the embryos develop outside of the female. Although the outline of Stethocanthus was similar to that of modern sharks, there are striking differences. The tail fin is almost symmetrical in modern sharks. The upper lobe is usually much larger than the lower lobe. The pectoral fins had a long, distinctive rod, called the whip, which trailed behind the fin. A third distinctive feature is the large structure projecting from its back. Sometimes called the ironing board, because of its shape, its upper surface was studded with a dense patch of denticles, tiny, tooth-like granules embedded in the skin. The only other place denticles appeared was in a patch on the head. These features, probably present only in males, may have been important for gripping females during mating. Ichthyostega was the first Devonian tetrapod to be discovered. Its fossils come from rocks in East Greenland, and it lived at the same time as Acanthostega. Ichthyostega has many unique features that have puzzled paleontologists for decades, but new research is clarifying some aspects of its structure. Its ear region, for example, appears to have been adapted for hearing in water rather than in air. Ichthyostega certainly spent some of its time in water, but its vertebral column seems to have been adapted to a form of terrestrial locomotion. Its body was encased in broad, overlapping ribs, which together with its robust shoulders and forearms, suggest that strong muscles were used to pull the animal along on land. Its paddle-like hind limbs were better adapted for swimming. In many respects, Tiktaalik is a fish that shows even more tetrapod-like features than Panderichthys. For example, Panderichthys has a series of bones that joins the skull to the shoulder girdle. There is also a series of bones that covers the gill region. These bones are absent in tetrapods, and most of them are also absent in Tiktaalik, at least, they have never been found. And many of the tetrapod features that Tiktaalik share with Panderichthys appear to be at a more advanced stage in the transition to land vertebrates. For example, it has an even longer snout and shorter rear portion of the skull than Panderichthys and a wider round notch, the spiracular notch, at the back of the skull.
Dunkleosteus was a heavily armored fish, but its armor did not enclose its pectoral fins at the rear. This development allowed the fin base to increase in length and aided mobility, suggesting that Dunkleosteus was an active hunter in the shallow seas in which it lived. The upper and lower parts of its trunk shield were connected only by small, non-projecting spinal plates. Its lower jaw and front upper tooth plate eventually wore down, leaving fang-like points. Dunkleosteus lacked ornament in most species, but its plates often bear bite marks and puncture wounds, indicating that, despite its size, it was itself hunted.